my right ear hasn't popped yet, so I feel like I'm talking in balloon inside of my head, you know? So I'm going to try to do my best. I'm not hurting. I'm not contagious. I just still kind of recovering for that. But I'm going to really ask you to be quiet so I don't have to overwork my voice, okay? Well, welcome. Welcome to your summer quarter. I saw some of you yesterday, but not all of you. I'm sure you're excited to spend your time in the cold lab, right? And, but I really want to hope you're going to have a lot of fun in this class, okay? So I'll be teaching it this quarter. It's my first time teaching it, and I spent a lot of times. Can you guys hear me? Oh, good. I spent a lot of times doing the break. I really try to compress the class to focus only what's important. So for this class, I'm not going to require a book, but it is on the syllabus. It's recommended, highly recommended. And I want you to go there. I think it is reserved in the library if you really want to, kind of read more on things that we study in the class. However, all of the quizzes and the final exam is going to come from the lectures, okay? But I'm going to talk more about the class and all the details. But today, that's our plan. We're going to have a devotional first. And during this class, usually during summer we travel, right? Oh, let's try to have some trips. And unfortunately, we have to be here, right? And do all this stuff. But I'm going to tell you some stories from my travels. I love traveling. And so hopefully it's going to encourage you to go and explore. I'm going to do introduction to the class. I'm going to answer any questions you have. I'm going to give introduction with some basic terminology that you need to know for your quiz next week. Also, Ms. Pena is going to do the first impression. You see algae impression and laboratory stone and plaster. Usually this lecture comes in the second class, but we missed the class last week because of the 4th of July. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get ahead and really do this lecture first, so next week we can finish it, because next week is the longest lab usually. It's the messiest and the longest lab. And I think by starting it today and just reviewing next week, hopefully you can finish on time and get things ready. Okay? Then you're going to have 5 to 10 minutes break. And for your lab, it's going to be a quick lab today. You're going to grab the boxes. I have special boxes for you that's in your little lockers underneath your desk. And we're going to go through it. You want to be sure you have all of the supplies. You're going to have your signature. And in the end of the lab, you're going to do the same thing. If you lose something, no, you're not going to pay for it. It's just I need to keep the inventory. So I know the next class, when they come, the boxes are ready to go. Okay? So don't be scared, but of course, be responsible. I don't want you to lose half of it. But if something gets broken, it happens sometimes. Even something gets misplaced and you even lose something, it's all right. I'm going to try to replace it. I just need to keep the track of it. Okay? Awesome. So, one time, a couple years ago, I had the biggest fear in my life. Not the biggest, but the fear. I love to travel. I've been around the world. I've been to like 20 countries, probably 25 by now. And one continent I said I'll never go was Africa. It's just one thing I said, no, there is so many diseases, especially if you go with medical dental missions, they have HIV a lot of times they don't even know that they have HIV positives. And so I always said, no, I'm not going to go. And one of those breaks was, I think it was winter break. I went to, it was like a young adult retreat, youth young adult, and the speaker was really encouraging us to serve God and really go out of comfort zone. And I knew it. I was like, this year is going to be Africa. I don't know when I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do there, but I'm going. I just was so sure. And I looked around, and I was taking a class during the time and working, and so I really had to match the trip to my schedule. So the only trip that I found was from Loma Linda University Church. It was in June, and it was to Kenya to work with Masai Mara people. I did my research, and I was like, well, schedule is good, but money was an issue, because that trip was kind of expensive. Good morning. The time is now 8:10 a.m. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry. And, I didn't know how I'm going to pay for it, because it was $3,000 plus, if you want to go to Zanzibar, it was $900 addition to that. Plus, I always would take my brother with me. We love travel together. And that's another 3,900 for him. And I'm like, we both kind of broke students. I just started working, loans, all of that. But I prayed. I was like, God, if you want me to go, open the door. Guess what? I sold my old car. I got extra money for my taxes. And one company that owed me like a couple $100 sent me a check that they owed me like 3 years before that. So it was like perfect timing. And then my brother sent a bunch of letters to church people, and they sent him money for his trip as well. But he was still short for $1,000. Like, how in the world are we gonna find $1,000? And so I called the organizer. I'm like, hey, can you put it on my credit card? My brother's still short. And he's like, I'll talk to you tomorrow. He calls me. He's like, you know what? I was so impressed how your brother been raising money. I have some donors who wanted to contribute for people who really want to go on the trip. And they gave me $1,000. I was like, God, you're awesome. When God tells you to do something, do it because He will provide. So after traveling, 13 hours to Turkey, who went to Africa this last break? Right, it's a long travel, right? So for us, it was 13 hours to Turkey, 7 to Nairobi. We slept for hours, and then another 7 on those bumpy roads. I was so tired. I was like, that's it. It's my last trip. I'm never gonna go. I'm done. But the moment I got to the Masai Mara area, I see all these animals just walking around like nothing happening. I was like, wow, it was so worth it. I was like, every single bump, every single hour in that plane, it was so worth it. I felt like I was in a different world, like kind of in the zoo, like humongous zoo. And, you see all kind of stuff that I never seen in my life. Like, I seriously felt like I was in a different world. We saw animals, we served the kids, the adults. And I was so impressed with the kids. You see, their classroom, that's the nicest school they have. It's the one that we were helping them to build. And I was so amazed how much desire they have for school. They were so humble, so respectful, and they would walk to school at least 5 miles one way. And sometimes they would sleep at school. And I'm like, this is my Western thinking. It's like, what do you mean I sleep at school? Where? They're like, on the floor. And I was like, where's the blankets? Where's the pillows? They're like, no, when you see around those desks, they just kind of curl underneath the desk and just, how it is, like a little pocket. I was like, wow. But they said that's still better condition than what they have at home. And I'll show you the pictures what they usually have, their homes look like. And the kids really want to go to school because first of all, they learn English. Second of all, let's give them basic skills to survive. And third of all, if they don't go to school, they have to just chase after the cows. That's pretty much what they do. They just raise the cows. That's like their currency. They pay stuff with cows, they exchange cows. And so the kids, they're desperate to go to school. A lot of the classrooms, you'll see kids different ages. And you're like, what's going on? It's 7th grader and you have 11-year-old and an 18-year-old. They go by knowledge. So if your knowledge is about 7th grade, you go to 7th grade. If your knowledge about 9th grade, you go to 9th grade. Doesn't matter how old you are. And so you would see, kids with, different ages. They're some tall, some short, and they're so desperate to learn. That's a typical village. That's the houses they have. And in their culture, usually the men have many wives. And then they buy a wife with the cow. So I would joke with guys. I was like, so guys, if you want a girl, what do you do here? And they're like, oh, we just bring the cow to the dad. That's it. And it was so natural for them. And then they asked me, what do people do in your culture? I was like, well, the girl kind of gets a ring. I don't know how to explain them. They're like, just a ring? But the cow, that's such a good gift. How come you want to get the ring? I was like, oh, it's complicated. I don't know how to explain it. And you'll see that the women usually have a hut. You see that hut? So, for example, if the man has 3 wives, each wife would build a hut. And you see that kind of fence, those sticks, that's a fence, that the husband will build a fence around it. So that's a typical, family setting. And now you understand why the kids, love to sleep at school, because usually it's even better, it's cleaner. You see all this cow manure everywhere, the flies were everywhere. I could not, be a medical person and be like, oh, I can't stand this. It was hard for me emotionally too. But despite all of this, they were so happy. Despite all of their poverty, I learned so much from them, and one thing I want you to encourage that I learned and hopefully going to be encouragement for you. First of all, face your fears. Whatever you're scared of, do it. Because you might have the best adventure in your life. For me, that's still my favorite trip. I've been to different countries. Yeah, I probably don't want to live there, but all the trips I've taken, this is still my favorite trip. The second thing that I appreciated after Africa and I started appreciate the food. You know, being in school, I probably ate 10 minutes during my lunch and tried to like study, right, during the other 35 minutes I had. When I went to work, you're always in a hurry, you know, next patient. During lunch break, you know, you finish your charts. I never really took time to eat and appreciate food. After that, I was like, I need to take at least 20 minutes and really calm down and appreciate the food. In their culture, they eat once a day because it's the only food they can get, if they're lucky. In the morning, they have a special drink and they give it to the kids. It's a little bit of blood and a little bit of milk mixed together. It's disgusting, you know, and you can see the kids drinking this purple drink. It's just blood and milk from the cow. And they believe that blood has nutrients, so it's good for the kids. And in their case, it's what they have, you know. Another thing I learned, the power of the community. In their community, you know, you see, for example, you know, they have a lot of kids. The whole community watches them. Like, if the kid is in trouble, they can get spanked from anybody. It's definitely not going to pass in our culture. But I love the idea how they're watching out for everybody. You know, and everything we did and everything they do, it has to be good for the community. For example, we built a school because it's good for the community. We had a clinic built because it's good for the community. Everybody can benefit. And while you're in this program, it's your community right now. You cannot graduate on your own, trust me. You know, sometimes we have to put the differences aside, the little dramas aside, and like, you know, what they can do to help each other. If you have something you can share, ask and share. If you can stay extra and help in clinic. Because you never know how that's gonna come back to you, you know? And you haven't missed it. Like, I know right now you're probably all stressed, especially after the spring quarter, but one day you're gonna look back, it's like, you know what, I miss my classmates, because you have that common goal and the common pain that only you can share and appreciate, okay? And the last thing that I learned from them, it was the famous expression that all of you know. It's called Hakuna Matata, right? The cartoon that was made actually on the base of Swahili language. And so Hakuna Matata means do not worry, or there is no worries for today. You know, in our culture, for example, we go somewhere, we want to finish things, we're going to accomplish stuff, right? Get things done. In their culture, you see them in the morning, and you're like, okay, let's do this, we have gas, let's go. And they're like, oh, good morning, how did you sleep? Did you eat breakfast? What did you have? How's your wife? How's your husband? How's your kids? They really want to know who you are and everything about you, you know? They don't stress out, you know? Despite of their poverty, they're way more calmer. And I think it's something I had to realize for myself. Because, you know, being a hygienist, I think being in the dental field, it makes you very anxious in a lot of times. And being a student makes you anxious, I think, even more. And, you know, each time I read this verse in the Bible, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. I feel like you guys need to read this every day. You know, with all the stresses you're going through, I have to remind myself a lot. And a lot of things, you need to be proactive to beat your worry and anxiety. You know, one of the things, always spend time with God and trust God. God is in control. You know, despite, if then assigned people can be so relaxed, despite living in their poop huts, you know, and, you know, they can be happy and enjoy life, I'm sure we have so many things to be thankful and enjoy life. I know a lot of times we're so busy and we sit a lot, our brain does not get oxygen. So I really want you to put your shoulders back and take a deep breath so your brain can get more oxygen. And during the day, try to, you know, just walk straight and really open up your lungs so you can get as much oxygen as possible. I think in our society, we use a lot of phones and a lot of electronics will give you that anxiety. Because you're constantly wired, so you're constantly looking. And so I really want you to encourage you guys, 2 hours before you go to bed, take your phones off. Turn off your computers. I know you have to study, sometimes plan it, so you can study from the book, but not from electronics, because that does not let your brain be more relaxed. Okay? Sleep. You know, some of us struggle with sleep, like me. Anything, if I'm stressed, I don't sleep. If I'm too excited, I don't sleep. And so I really had to work hard to be sure I get my sleep, because if I don't, I'm miserable and I'm more anxious. And I know as a student, you have to be sure you get your quality of sleep. Exercise. I see a lot of you in the gym. Yay. That's really good. Eating healthy. Have support group. Family and friends. Have community. If sometimes, things happen in life. If you want to see professional counselor, lower the pace for you guys. 10 times you can go to counseling for free. You want to talk about your family. You want to talk about how to study better. You want to talk about anything, weather. Just go and talk. It's covered. When I was at school, my mom died right before I started at school. And one thing, looking back, I was like, I wish I went to counseling earlier. That really helped me to understand the grieving process and see like, okay, you're not crazy, it's just you're gonna go through ups and downs. And for me, it was so helpful. And so we all go through stresses, and I would highly encourage you guys to get counseling if you feel like you need it. And it's free, and you can go to, it's like the support center that's away from the campus, so you don't even have to be here on campus if you want to be more, if you don't want to share with anybody, you don't let people see you go to counseling, right? And then healthy hobbies. If anything, you can take your mind off through music, traveling, something that's not dental. Dental is not a hobby at this point. Do it at least for a few minutes a day. That really calms you down. Okay? Awesome. So I want to say a quick prayer, and I'm going to start the class. Dear God, thank you so much for my awesome class. Thank you so much for this class. The material class helped us to learn. And I'm also asking, Lord, help us not to worry about tomorrow. God, help us to relax and control anxiety to the best ability. Also, please help us to give our troubles to you, God, because we all have, things happening in our lives that can, trouble us and sadden us, Lord. But we give everything to you, and I'm asking your blessings for this class. I'm asking for blessings for this today, for clinic, whatever we're going to go through, God. In Jesus' name I pray, Lord. Amen. Excellent. Okay. I have posted information about the class online. So when you go to Canvas, you're going to have the syllabus, and all the information is there. I already said I'm not requiring a book, but if you need some more clearance or you feel like you need to read on stuff, it's in the library. Okay? A lot of times, if you don't understand certain term, you can look it up. It's very straightforward. It's nothing, I didn't want to make it very scientific where you have all this chemistry and behind it, because you're not dentists, some of you yet, and so you don't need to know that as much. If you want to know for yourself, go ahead. Okay? I have my phone number. I respond better with text. I never check my phone in my office, so I don't put it here. If you need to ask me a question, email me. If you want to text me, you can text me. I'm probably not going to respond in the evening. I on purpose to take my phone off, turn my phone off, so I can calm down, And so, unless it's an emergency, you can call me 5 times, and I was like, okay, something's going on, I need to answer. But usually I don't, after 8 p.m., I turn it off, okay? Before that, feel free to text me. I usually respond quite fast. But if it's not urgent, if it's just a general question, find me in clinic. It's the best way. I'm going to be in clinic every single day, so except Tuesdays. Grading. So first of all, I want to be sure I remind you that because I'm not requiring a book, I want to be sure you're here on time. If you're late 3 times, your grade is going to go down. For example, from A to A minus. Or if you miss any class twice, the same thing, your grade is going to go down. Because it's very important that you're here on time, because I'm not requiring stuff outside of the classroom. The class that they had previous year had a lot of reading, and the students spend a lot of time outside of this class. I really wanted to simplify. However, I am requiring you to have your attention. I don't want to see anybody on the phone. So I really want to ask you guys to take your phones, and your purses. If you're on the computer taking notes, I don't want to see any other websites. I want you to pay attention and really write in notes, because everything is going to be from the lectures. And sometimes, you can have a term, but the lecturer is going to explain it. You have to make a note, because that's going to be the lecture. I don't want to hear later, oh, you didn't tell us anything. Well, you probably didn't listen. So that's one of my biggest requirements. No phones. If you're on the computer, I want to be sure you're focusing on the class. Okay? So 30% of your grade is going to be from lab. As long as it's on time, you're going to get 100%. And it has to be clinical acceptable. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be perfect enough. So something that you can do it in the office, and then it's going to be, it looks fine, okay? For example, if we do amalgams or composites, and if something is not as, ideal, they're not going to mark you off. But it has to be clinical acceptable. If the amalgam probably chipped off, you have to redo it. Or if your impression has a lot of bubbles, you have to redo it. But we are here to help you and to get a lot of guidance. I just want to be sure we do everything on time, okay? Quizzes is going to be 30% and final 40%, okay? Quizzes is going to be 10 questions, everything from a lecture before. And I'm going to give you one take-home quiz. It's going to be about sealants because you're going to miss one class period due to OSCE. So it's going to be like 2 weeks period. So I decided just to give you take-home, okay? And final is going to be about 50 questions, probably, or 40 to 50 questions. I haven't decided yet. Okay, any questions? Yes?
We'll have a quiz every week.
Yes, one. Yes, quiz every week. We're going to have only, I think it's 8 class periods because it's a shorter. We're missing a class period because of OSCE, and we missed already because of 4th of July. Okay? So I really want to be sure everything's fresh, but everything comes from the lecture. As long as you're going through the lecture, making notes, everything's going to come from there. Sometimes I'm going to give you tips. Pay attention to this term. You might have a question on that, But it's not going to be complicated. But it's something that's common sense. But if you listen, if you read it, you'll answer it. But if you didn't pay attention, you're probably going to miss it. Okay, good question. Anything else? You guys are good. I have the schedule. And everything I'm going to be posting on Canvas. I have already posted stuff for today. I'm going to repost again the lecture because, I have to make a little disclaimer. My computer had a lot of keyboard issues. So when I type, it would not type properly. Like some of the letters could be missed. So I took it to computer services, they fixed it, but it's still not the same. And so I really went through a lot to pick on the misspelled words, and Ms. Pena did the same thing. Just in case if you see something misspelled, let us know. Don't feel, shy. I want to know because my computer had a lot of issues, and I had to deal with it. Yes?
This was about the final. Will you be giving us a study guide for the final?
I'll think about it. It's going to be all from the lectures. And the lectures are pretty short. Like today lectures for like 30 minutes. The lectures are not like 3 hours now. So it's going to be straight from the lectures. Your final, think about your quizzes. Probably whatever you had on the quizzes, some was going to be related to the final. Okay? And again, it's going to be very straightforward. Like I really try to make it very straightforward. And then if you need some help, if you feel like you have some guidance, maybe the last class, I can give you some guidance, like focus on this and focus on that, you can make notes. Okay? And if you guys have any other suggestions or questions, always can email me or ask me. Awesome. How are you guys doing? Are you good? Okay. So why do we need to study down the materials? You're like, I'm a hygienist, I don't need to know this, right? Guess what? It's going to be a national board questions. It's about 7 of them. They're not usually going to be complicated, but they are there. And I want to be sure, my goal, I want to be sure you know enough for a national board and you know well hands-on. Because when you go to the private practice, you want to be sure you're well-rounded. Like, if your assistant is not there and you need an impression, you want to know at least somewhat, well enough to do it for your dentist. Also, when a dentist goes to your patient and they're going to go, okay, I'm requiring a crown, an amalgam, and a composite. The moment the patients, and Ms. Pena is going to support that, right? The moment the dentist is out of the room, the patient's going to turn to you and say, what do you think? What's the difference? Sometimes they feel shy to ask the doctor, but they're more comfortable with you. And so you need to know, you have to explain, when the doctor's going to do the amalgam, it's going to be this. If the doctor is going to do a filling, it's going to be this, And you need to know the difference, why, Or, for example, the doctor's going to you need to make an impression. And the patient's going to turn to you, what is it? You need to know how to explain what to do, So you want to be sure you're well prepared. Also, who are you thinking about dentistry? Can I have this? Awesome. So that's going to be a great experience for you to try hands-on. Like you're going to place amalgam and composites. You're going to be polishing them. So it's something you're going to do, when you're going to be a dentist. So that's, I feel like, it's going to be a nice introduction for you as well. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go through basic terms that you need to know. You are going to have some questions on the quiz next week. There is an American National Standard Institute that I didn't know even existed that really takes care of the different materials because it goes to your body and our mouth has a different environment. So one of the things that I'm looking for is dimensional changes. So shrinking and expansion. So for example, you might have a question, what are two dimensional changes in the material? Well, I don't know how many dimensions. You have to write shrinkage or expansion, or I can add something that's 31 that's not true, And so that's very straightforward. You like to think about it, I think it's easy to understand. Because when you look on the picture on the lower right, you see the amalgam, and you see all the cracks around the tooth, right? So that patient eating like that really chewy candy or gum, one of the cups can come off. I can just see it coming off. And why? Why did it happen? Because amalgam is a metal. And if it's hot, what metal does? The metal expands. Excellent. Because the composite is different. A composite actually shrinks. So when you see the picture on the lower left, you see the little edge that's like a brownish. It's probably, creates a little leakage. So the bacteria can get there. And so the dentists have to make a decision, which area is better for composite or the amalgam. Okay. Another property we need to look for is galvanism. Remember that term. It's electrical current between the similar metals. So, for example, gold and amalgam. Corrosion and tarnish, another two terms. That's, I'm pretty sure that's going to be a test. I can just keep it right there. And I think that question was on national board because corrosion is an irreversible process and tarnish is reversible. So corrosion is the dissolution of metal in the mouth. So you have to replace the whatever metal portion because it's just disappeared or breaking down. Tarnish, and you can see the picture on the bottom. It's loss of the surface finish and it's reversible through polishing. So you see this amalgam on the bottom. So the amalgam on the left needs some help. The amalgam on the right looks perfect. Okay. So I will probably have a question. For example, what's the difference between tarnish and corrosion? And I want you to write that's the reversible and that's the irreversible, or opposite. Or I'm probably going to ask true or false. Tarnish is irreversible process. And you have to say, no, it's false. You see, so it's very straightforward. But I want to be sure you have the basic understanding. Okay? Another thing that's very important is thermal conductivity. Metals have the highest thermal conductivity, and enamel and dental have the lowest. Why it's important? Tell me. And it's right there. Why it's important to us to know. So if the patient has needs to put a large filling, do you think it's better to put, that's close to the nerve, is it better to put amalgam or a composite? Huh?
A crown.
Composite. Or a crown, yes. Well, so why composite? Because it doesn't have as high thermal conductivity, because if you have a huge amalgam next to the nerve and you eat something super cold or super hot, guess what? The patient's going to be like, ouch, I have zings, or it gives me a lot of pain. So that's something, the dentist has to take into consideration. And the patient's going to ask you, why do I need to put filling there, or like composite? And you can say, hey, it's very close to your nerve. This point, we're going to put the composite and see if it can be okay. If not, we're going to put the crown. Viscosity. Its ability of material to flow. So the thicker the material, the more viscous it is. Hardness. Its resistance of material to indentation. If you're chewing, you put a lot of pressure. So enamel and ceramics materials are the two the hardest. And unfilled acrylic is the softest. Unfilled acrylic is the material that's used in temporary counts. So it's just temporary there, it doesn't have to be hard, and it serves its purpose. Any questions? I think it's pretty straightforward, right? You guys got it. Excellent. Okay, yes?
On the picture before, on the step, the picture of the two different amalgams, is there one that's better than the other, or is this just, they look the same?
This one?
Yeah.
Good question. So this one, it's an example of tarnish. So there's, you see like on the right, it was polished,
Oh,
so it's, get the shiny stuff back.
okay.
And then the left side, it just been old, so it lost that,
Oh,
it's a process of tarnish, so it's surface finish. And so after you polish the amalgam, so that's the process to get the finish better. I'm talking too much now. You okay? You got
Is
it?
it both tarnish?
So on the left it's tarnish,
Okay,
and then it's it's a reversal process. Now it's like it's fixed.
okay.
It's back to normal. Is it good? Okay, so tarnish, it's when lost, like you see how the left side, it looks very foggy, like it's not as shiny. So it's lost its surface finish. Makes sense? And so after you polish, and you are going to be polishing them also, it becomes shiny again, because it's what you want. You want to be sure it's nice and shiny. So that's process, that's tarnish, that's a reversible process. So you polish the dim area and make it more shiny. Make it very nice. Make sense? With corrosion, I didn't have, it's when, for example, you have a metal portion and it started like changing colors, break it, so you can't really fix it with polishing. You have to replace it. Okay? And this tarnish, you can fix it as possible. Make sense? Excuse me, I'm crossing. Okay. Excellent. Any questions so far? You guys are good? And thank you for asking questions. I want to be sure you understand. Okay, and the last slide. It's mechanical properties of the materials. I'm not going to be very picky about it. I just want you to know generalized idea. So compressive strength is the stress that's required to break the material under the pressure. For example, enamel, enamel is the hardest organ in your body, even harder than the bones. Tensile strength. So it's stress required to break material and pull apart. Gold alloys are has the highest one. I'm sure you're gonna see patients that had gold alloys or like crowns that's been there for like ages, like 50 years, and they look like new. Gold so far I think is the best material to use. Unfortunately, we don't use it as much because of the cosmetic issues. I think people don't like gold teeth now, but it has very strong tensile strength. Elastic modulus. It's pretty much how elastic the material is. So for example, if you have an impression, we're going to use the alginate, right? Alginate is very elastic, but gold, the opposite, is very tensile. So very straightforward. Kelvin strength. It's stress in which requires arbitrary amount of permanent strength occurs in material. So it's pretty much how much strength you can give away. Ductility is the ability of a material to be stretched without breaking. And malleability is the ability of a material to compress or shape without breaking. For example, an amalgam, because you're going to be compressing and putting it down. So you want to be sure you compress it enough so it doesn't break down, it doesn't fall apart. Make sense? So it's very straightforward. I'm not going to be picky about the mechanical properties. As long as you can, for example, maybe 3 of them, I'll be happy. So probably one of the 3 questions I'm probably going to ask, tell me 3 mechanical properties of the materials. And I want you to write it down at this scale. Or maybe 4, I don't know. I haven't decided. Any questions? You guys are good? You've been so good paying attention. So I'm done with that portion. Do you need a little break, or should we go straight to the next lecture? How are you guys doing? Huh? Excuse me, go straight? Awesome. Okay, so Miss Pena is going to do the next lecture. And we're going to review a little bit before the lab when we do the next time. So don't stress out if you don't remember for next time. But we're just going to start it today. We'll review a little bit before the lab, and we're going to do the lab next week. Okay? So Miss Pena is working her master's in public health. She's here part-time, but she's also an assistant and a hygienist. So she will be perfect to help us to do impressions and for the task. she's way better at this than me because I never learned how to do it. I kind of learned with you guys and I started helping with the class. So she's gonna do the next lecture and then we're gonna have a break, okay? Like this. Awesome. Oh, yes, yes, you can have the microphone. That's right.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Can you guys hear her? Yes, good.
Okay, so today we're going to be going over, we're going to be talking about alginate and how to create alginate impression. Okay? So first we're going to go ahead and take a look at different types of impression materials. So we're going to look at alginate, which is the most common aqueous irreversible hydrocolloid, which can shrink due to syneresis because that's loss of water. Then it can also distort due to inhibition, which is the uptake of water. We have our VPS, which is the most accurate and stable material, perfect for crowns and bridges. We have our agar, which is aqueous, and that one is reversible. It may shrink due to loss of water, and it can also distort due to the uptake of water. Then we have our polysulfide and our polyether, which are both non-aqueous materials. So we will be focusing more on alginate because it is the most commonly used material or impression material in dentistry. It is an elastic compression material and it's an irreversible hydrocolloid. Okay. So alginate impression materials change from a sol phase to a gel phase due to their chemical reactions. So the alginate impression material starts off as a powder, then when the water is added, it becomes a gel that hardens. But once the alginate sets, it cannot go back to its sol phase. We just added this little cartoon here that the tooth is asking him what he's doing, and he's like, oh, I'm going on a date tonight. I need to make a good impression. Or you. Yeah?
You said that agar, slide 2, you said agar is reversible?
Yes, I think that one's irreversible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made some changes because of there were some errors, but we will upload the most updated one. Okay?
Oh, that's reversible.
Yes, agar is reversible.
And I will upload this lecture today. It just minor changes that they did like last night, so.
So the alginate impression material is a hydrocolloid because it is a glue-like material made up of 2 or more substances and is a suspension of a medium-sized particle in water-based solution. There are 2 types. We just went over them. The reversible, which is the agar, and then the irreversible, which is our alginate. So let us introduce a few more terms before we move on. So what is impression material? It's used to make accurate replicas of the oral tissues. Then impression, which is a negative reproduction of the oral tissues. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this picture. This is an example of what an impression looks like on a maxillary arch. This is a negative imprint of the teeth and the soft tissues of the mouth because it's a copy in reverse of the surfaces. Then we have our impression tray, a metal or plastic device in which the material is placed, carried in the mouth, supported, and is allowed to set, then removed. There are different types of trays. We have our plastic perforated trays that we use here in clinic, and then there's non-perforated. Then we have the metal trim lock, and those also don't have perforations, they're smooth, and then we have the metal perforated ones. So what do these trays look like? So here we have some examples of the trays that we're going to be using. We're mostly going to be working with the plastic ones,
Right here.
but these are all the other ones that do exist. So up on the upper left, we have the plastic ones that are perforated, and when you put in the impression material, it leaks out. So you'll be able to see it and see when the stickiness goes away or when the material hardens. Okay, then we have our non-perforated trays on the upper right. Those are more solid. Then we have our metal trays here in the center that are perforated, and you can notice in that picture, we have one that looks like a horseshoe. That's the mandibular one. You guys can look up here, and this is so that the tongue goes in this area when you press it in. Because we don't need to take an impression of the tongue. Then we do have the one for the maxillary, and we do need the palate. So then that's how you'll recognize which one's the upper and which one's the lower. So then we have our model or cast, which is a positive produced by filling an impression with a hard setting gypsum material, which is used in the evaluation and fabrication of restorations and processes. So then the impression is a negative, and then when you make the stone, then that's the positive. Okay?
Question, that's a good question for the test, just saying, you know. A little tip, make notes.
So let's look at some desirable properties of an impression or impression material. So one, it should be elastic. Two, should be pleasant in odor, taste, and color. There are some that do smell or taste like bubble gum. I've mostly worked up with the ones that taste like mint. Three, non-toxic or irritating. Four, question?
Could you use the mic that maybe she just spoke into, because we cannot hear you.
Oh, okay.
Or,
No, I'm glad she said something. Okay, let's see if we can fix this one first. Okay, what if you higher, I can see that one fix.
Is that better? No?
No. So you can go ahead to use this one. Hello, 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 hello. It worked. Hello, is it better? Is it?
Okay, I'll just try to talk a little bit louder. I can go louder for you guys. So then we have 5, it should be economical. 6, easy to use with minimum equipment.
Maybe pull this closer to the mouth. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then 6, easy to use with minimum equipment. 7, good setting characteristics. 8, good consistency and texture.
I think the mic doesn't work.
The mic. Hello?
Hello. Oh.
There you go.
Okay, let's try this one then. No, thank you guys. Please let us know if you can't
Better?
hear.
This is just me.
Hear noise.
Is it working? Yeah?
No, it's not.
I think it should be closer.
Hello? 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 Maybe if you're too far.
I think the battery's dying.
No, it still has no. Hello.
So let's just,
I just highlighted it as question.
okay, so these are some more desirable properties, which is 9, it should be removed without permanent damage. Adequate strength and dimensionally stable. Compatible with various cast and die materials. It should be accurate, and you should be able to disinfect it. All right, so now let's look at some uses of alginate material. So impressions and models are used for diagnostic models, constructions of custom trays and bite blocks, construction of possible temporary crowns, bridges, or appliances, and the fabrication of a quick model to check the progress of a crown, bridge, or preparation. Can everybody hear me? We're good? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the reaction that the alginate material.
Hello. Okay, I changed the battery. Let's see if that benefits.
Better? Okay. So, the reaction. We have our alginate powder, which has particles of potassium alginate, calcium sulfate reactant, an accelerator, retarder, fillers, and other modifiers. So, filler material is a diatomaceous, I practiced so hard, diatomaceous earth, which is a fossilized remains of small animals. So then we have our powder with our water, which will dissolve into a potassium alginate and react with the calcium sulfate to form particles that do clump up, and that's how we get our alginate. So our potassium alginate and calcium sulfide combined with water becomes a gel. So that is when we have our sol to gel phase, which is now irreversible.
What's
Question?
the salt?
salt is when it's powdered, and then when we add the water, it becomes a gel.
On the stuff that's folded, is that stuff that you're gonna pay attention
So if you look on the slide, there are things that are bolded, or they have the little red dots. Those are a little bit more important. Also, I was gonna mention this later in the PowerPoint, but I should just do it now. There will be some images of big red question marks, which are highly important. So you do want to take note of those, because they will be asked maybe on a quiz, a test, and possibly board. You've seen those types of questions. Okay? So let's look at some clinical concerns for alginate. So one would be storage. It does react with water, and it does deteriorate with heat and aging. So you don't want to keep it stored for too long. So it should also be stored in a cool area, and you don't want to store it for more than 6 to 12 months. Operator safety, PPEs. Always wear a mask and safety goggles. Diatomaceous earth is irritating both to the lungs and the eyes. You want to go ahead and fluff the material 2 to 3 times when you're using it. But before you open the pan, if you use the bulb, you want to let it settle for a few seconds.
Can I add something here too? Next week, when we're gonna do this lab, I want to be sure you wear your scrubs because it gets very messy. And don't have acute hair because you have to pull it back because it gets really messy. And you want to be sure you have the lab coat. So we have the cover as well because we want to be sure you protect it. Yes?
Will it be taking impressions on each other?
Yes, we're going to be taking impressions from each other. We'll talk more about it. Yeah. Because we want to do bleach and trace eventually. That's the whole goal of it. But, that's the first step. But next lab, that's usually the messiest one. So I want to be sure you don't bring anything cute that you don't want to ruin. I mean, you could probably wash it off, but I don't want to do this too. Sorry, Ms. Payne, I just wanted to say the question.
Yeah, it's okay. Working time. This is very important when you start to mix, okay? When you put in your water. So working time is the time you have to work with the material before it sets. So regular setting material is 3 minutes, which means that you have 60 seconds to mix it. Then we have our fast set material, which is 2 minutes. Then you have 45 seconds to mix. The setting time is affected by different things, such as the increase of temperature, cold water, mixing time, and water to powder ratio. So let's say that you use hot water. This means that it's going to set a whole lot faster. If you use cold water, it's going to set slower. If you mix for too long, you're not going to have enough time to put it in the tray and then in the patient's mouth. Lastly, if you put too much powder, it's going to harden a whole lot faster and you might not be able to mix it well. Setting time. So once again, we have our regular set, which is 3 minutes, which is from the start of the mix. Then the fast set, which is 2 minutes. And we went ahead and talked about the little guy in the corner. You guys see him with the red question mark? Highly important. So what does affect the setting time? Increased temperature. So 10 degrees Celsius cuts your setting time in half, which means that it's going to set a whole lot faster. Decrease in water temperature, which means that if you use cold water, you're going to increase your setting time, and it'll set slower. Flexibility, able to be removed after it sets. The strength, which is the tendency to tear, remove with a snap motion. Avoid thin areas, and you need 3 to 4 millimeters of thickness. Okay? So when you do take out the impression, you don't want to tug on it or pull on it on the front. You want to go ahead and insert your index finger all the way to the back of the molar area and snap down. Because it'll cause like a suction. You don't want to jerk the patient's head forward.
Sorry, Ms. Mania, quick question. For the setting time,
Yeah.
so you can't use hot water nor cold water? So you just use like...
You want to use cold water because it'll give you more working
Oh,
time.
cold water, yeah.
You don't want to use hot water. Then that means you have to work really fast.
Sweet.
Also, your alginate material should be compatible with the stone or gypsum that you are using in your lab. Now let's look at some clinical techniques. First, we're going to look at patient position and instruction. You want to have the patient upright, never laying back, or at an angle. You want to have the saliva ejector ready, but first you want the patient to rinse for 1 minute and brush with a toothbrush. You want to make sure to wipe the surfaces of the teeth and the soft tissue to make sure that the impression will be more accurate, because if you have food particles or too much saliva, it will interfere with your impression. It'll kind of come out as a bubble or as an extra piece. Tray selection, also very important. So we have our maxillary tray with the palate, which I showed you earlier, and we have our mandibular, which has an opening for the tongue. You have to choose the correct size. Also for comfort and for more accuracy of your impression. If the tray is too small, the teeth will cut right through the impression and it'll hit the tray and it'll make your impression be distorted. Also, you want to make sure that when you put in the tray, you want to try it in first. Make sure that you have enough room and it's long enough. If the tray is not long enough, and then maybe the next level, we have the small, medium, and large. If maybe the large is too big for your patient, you can always add wax material to make it a little bit longer. Water temperature. So our water temperature is 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. When you mix in your water, you want to use a full cylinder of 57 milliliters per package of powder. You want to go ahead and add the water first. For the lab, we do have the packaging, so you're not going to have to worry about doing the measurements with the bulk material.
I have a question. So why do you have to add water first? Any of you like to bake? So you put water first, right? Or like the egg first and then the powder, because why? Yes, because of the, it removes all the clumps, like the little, how you call them, clumps. So the same thing here, you want to put water first, because when you mix it, it's going to help it have more smoother consistency. That's why I put a question mark there, because that's a very important element to remember.
Then we have our dispensing. Very important, you need to read the instructions. Every product is different. You don't want to treat them all the same. So you want to make sure you have the right amount of water to powder ratio. Alterations will affect the strength and viscosity, setting time, consistency, flexibility, hair strength, and surface detail. So let's say that you've worked with a certain material for 5 months and you're very comfortable with it. Then your office decides to buy a cheaper brand or a different brand. And it's not doing the same thing anymore. So make sure to read the instructions to make alterations as needed. Do not pack the scoop tightly. The material needs to be fluffed. That's why on the other side we ask that you shake the bowl if you can. So make sure that it doesn't, if you do have a bulge, that you're not making it really tight. Mixing. As mentioned, you want to add the powder to the measured water. Use a clean bowl for gypsum particles. As gypsum particles will cause decrease in setting time. What this means is that if you are going to mix alginate and gypsum material, which is the stone material, you do not want to do it in the same bowl. Because particles do end up staying in the crevices of the plastic bowl, and this will alter your alginate. So your regular set is 45. You have 45 to 60 seconds to mix. The fast set, you have 30, 45. So what happens if you undermix your material? You're going to have a weak gel, a poor surface texture.
Why would you want two different set times? Like, why would you want one fast and one regular? Would you need more time to do the impression?
Very good question. We do have patients that gag, and the fast setting is ideal for those patients. For patients that it doesn't bother them, the regular set is fine. Or maybe you just like to work faster. Personally, I do not like the fast setting one. I need my time. Because sometimes patient might start to cough or anything can happen. And you might need those extra seconds to get that tray in the mouth. But if the patient is a patient that gags or doesn't like things in their mouth, and you need to move along quickly, then that's the best one, the fastest. So good things to look at if you undermix. So if you undermix, that means, have you guys ever, like, the dollar said made a cake and you didn't mix it well and you see all these little clumps and they're powdered? So that's what happens to the alginate as well. So once you take the impression out, you might see all these little powder bubbles and they might distort your impression and the stone is going to come out with voids. If you overmix, if you take too long mixing your materials, you decrease your working time, which means you have less time to get the impression into the patient's mouth. There will be loss of detail and incomplete seeing of the tray. This has happened to me before, especially when I had just started. I took too long mixing and putting it in the tray, and once I tried getting it in, the tray only went halfway. And when I really tried to press it in, tried to cheat, then it came out all scratched, like somebody had just scraped the alginate. So you're going to lose a lot of detail, and then you have to start all over again. Okay, so you want to go ahead and thoroughly mix this with the side of the rubber mold. So you want to swipe side to side, okay? You don't just want to keep it in the center and kind of go in circles. You want to use your spatula and spread the material. Particles of gypsum products will affect the working and setting time. Very important, we've said this before, so just keep a good eye on it. You don't want to use the same bowl. Loading the tray. Avoid trapping air using a solid tray. Place more in the anterior of the tray and apply excess in areas that have common voids, such as the molars, the palate of both the maxillary and the mandibular arches. Okay, so now we're going to look at 4 pictures here. Everybody go ahead and take a good look. So let's talk about the pictures. Which one do you guys think has the correct water to powder ratio? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Who says 4? Raise your hand. 2. What about 3? Why isn't it 4? Too watery. Why isn't it 3? It's really chunky, huh? So picture number 1 looks about right. It looks like a smooth texture, and it's in the tray evenly, and it's not coming out. Very good.
What's that for number 2?
This image,
Pressing it down and then coming out the side.
yeah, you usually want to do this when the patient either has voids or you want to need extra material on the occlusal surfaces. But it's not ideal to take a full section of the arm. We'll be talking about that. Just a second. So tray insertion. Center the tray in the arch. You want to go ahead and do the posterior first, then rotate forward. This allows you to see the location of the molars in the back or in relation to the palate, the hamular notches, and the last 2. There's a tendency also to cause gagging if extra material does go to the back of the throat. So if you go ahead and insert the back first and then rotate forward, the material will come to the front, which is the anterior of it. So you want to seat the tray fully, allowing the alginate to move forward. Hold it in place without pressure or movement until it fully sets. So once you have the tray in, you're done. Just hold the patient's head steady and just don't move or rock the tray. You don't want to move it forward and backward to see if it's set. If you want to check the setting time, you can go ahead and check the stickiness. So after 2 minutes, the alginate loses its stickiness. So if we're using a tray that's perforated, the material would come out in those areas and you can check it that way. Also, it does take approximately 4 minutes to set from start to mix. So if you're looking at a clock, it'll be really helpful. let's look at some pictures about tray insertion.
What's wrong with this picture? Tell me, guys. Right? Can you imagine to do that without gloves?
These pictures are already here, friends. We're working with them. So once again, you want to center the tray, as we can see in the upper left. You see how the tray is just in the mouth and they haven't seated it? So then, you want to go ahead and use your finger or a mirror to go ahead and check the location. Once you've done so, you want to put pressure on the back and then rotate forward and pull the lip over the anterior of the tray to make sure that the material stays in place and you have a good impression of the anterior teeth. No, so once, we're going to show you, but when you put it in, it goes, I don't know if you can see, it goes in this way and then it comes up this way.
We have some videos as well
Yeah.
before the lab. So don't stress out that you need to know the techniques. I want you just to kind of get the generalized idea, and then before the lab we have a video. Okay?
Tray removal. You want to grasp it firmly. You want to support the patient's head. You don't just want to pull the tray out because it does have a suction. It creates a suction, either maxillary or mandibular, and you're just going to jerk the patient's head. Also, you want to break the seal with a snap motion as we mentioned earlier. Use your index finger, if it's the maxillary, go all the way to the back of the tray in the molar area and snap it down. Or in the mandibular, you want to press up. Be sure to be careful when you are removing it, and you don't want to do it with rocking, because if the material hasn't set fully and it's just a little soft, you're going to break all of the alginate. So after impression evaluation, you want to rinse only with water in areas that have blood, saliva, to disinfect it. There has to be a clear negative reproduction of the teeth, the gingival margins, the palate, frenum, facial and lingual vestibules, the hanular notches, and the palatal bulbs. It should be free of bubbles or voids, and the tooth should be in proportion. Now, let's look at this picture. This is a really good example of what your impression should look like at the end. Everything is visible, the teeth. You guys see the palate, there are no cuts in the alginate. So this is what you should end up like. We do see a little bit of the green tray, but it's not cutting all the way through. Okay, so who can tell me what's wrong with this picture? It's kind of like a surprise picture in the shot. Ready? This one's a good one. Okay. People are already saying it's bad. Wait, this is a good one. I haven't finished it. Ready? So what happened here? Too much material. So that's what you don't want to happen. You don't want to be without that material in the tray. Also, don't put the patient's head back. How this patient was breathing, I don't know. So remember, we want an impression of the teeth, not the tongue. So remember, we were talking about putting the pressure in the back first and then having the alginate come forward. First, I think this person put too much material and then they just pressed it and it all went back. Okay, so this is what you don't want. So let's continue with our evaluation of our impression. So it shouldn't have any bubbles or voids that are larger than 0.5 millimeters in diameter. Evidence of no unmixed powder, and the surface should be smooth with no evidence of distortion. No tears, and the impression should be completely within the confines of the tray. And the impression should not be pulled loose from the tray. So if you are pulling the impression tray out, and then the alginate comes out of the tray, it's not going to work anymore, okay? So you will have to take another impression. So if the impression is unacceptable, simply remove it from the tray and try again. It's more difficult to remove it when the tray does have adhesive. It is really helpful, but if you have to take the impression again, you will have to use a different tray. So for this class, we will not be using the adhesive. So let's say you can't pour it right away. So the impression storage, you want to wrap it in a moist paper towel and place it in a plastic bag and seal it. You can store it for just 2 hours in 100% humidity. Never an impression for a final model. So if you don't have a plastic bag, you don't want to go ahead and store it for 2 hours because it will dry out.
Going back to like the unacceptable impressions, is this where you were talking about the irreversible or reversible? Say you did make a mistake or a crack happened, you could reverse it if it were the agar?
Yes.
Like putting all water and mixing it up again?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So once you've made your impression, if it's wrong, you have to throw it out. It's done. The material doesn't work anymore. Okay? So ideally, you want to pour immediately within 10 to 15 minutes with a selected gypsum product. You want to go ahead and still put it in the paper towel, or you go ahead and transfer to the lab. Always keep the impression upright and do not air dry. I know we're moving a little bit forward because we haven't gone over the gypsum product or the stone, but we are going to talk about a little bit about pouring. So once you've poured your impression with the stone, and you're going to go ahead and remove them you're going to remove the plaster from the stone. It has to be in 1 hour. But prolonged contact with the alginate and gypsum will cause the surface deterioration of the model. So you don't want to leave them together for too long. So let's say you forgot. You went home and you're like, oh my gosh, I left my patient's impression and I didn't take it out. When you come in the next day, you're going to have a really hard time separating those two because it turns into a really hard plastic. Things that will happen is that it can break. So let's go over some common situations and ways to troubleshoot. So let's look at for impression material with a short setting or working time, you need to consider the following: the water temperature, the water to powder ratio, mixing time, and the time you have to load the tray. A grainy surface or a lack of detail. What does this mean? It wasn't mixed well. The material started to set too fast, or it was removed before the final set. Incorporated air when mixing. Gagging, really important. So you want to explain to the patient what you will be doing and be gentle. Patients usually work really well when they know what you're doing. So you either want to explain to them before you get started, or you want to walk them through as well about what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be placing that tray in the mouth, what it feels like, things like that. Also, you can take the lower impression first. There's always less gagging when you do the mandibular impression first. You can use anesthetic rinses and sprays. Avoid overloading the tray in the posterior. Tip the patient's head slightly back for the lower impression and forward for the upper. When it comes to tearing, you want to use the appropriate removal technique, which is the snap technique. You want to use the correct size of the tray. For bubbles or voids, let's say that the patient is missing an occlusal surface on a tooth. You can go ahead and mix extra material and then just place it with your finger, a syringe in that area so that that void is filled.
So we're going to syringe first, put in that area, and then
Then do the impression. It would be easier to do with a finger or a little spatula. You put it in the area, then you want to go ahead. Dimensional stability, loss of accuracy with time of storage. Syneresis, which is water collection of surface, the loss of water evaporates, causing shrinkage. You can avoid this by pouring it as soon as possible or storing it correctly. Imbibition, which is the absorption of water, which causes expansion or swelling. It can also be avoided by pouring it as soon as possible and storing it correctly. Permanent deformation. Once seated, no pressure should be exerted. Like I said, once the tray is in the mouth, you got it in the right area, you don't want to keep moving it. You need the adequate thickness of 3 to 4 millimeters. Things to consider: the tray size. It also tends to clump, so make sure that if the palette is high, if you put wax in that area before putting on the alginate. Sometimes you will need that extra alginate for people that have the high palette. It does have the highest deformation of all the pressure materials, so you have to be careful. Now we're going to take a look at some images of how to properly clean your bowl once you're done. Once you're done taking your impression, make sure to clean the bowl and spatula with a paper towel. You don't want to wash the material down the sink because it will clog it. You want to throw the excess material into the trash can. Very basic, but somebody always says. So be careful, we don't want to get in trouble. Now for model fabrication, as mentioned before, make sure to wrap the impression in a moist paper towel to avoid drying out. Or you can also go ahead and do the impression on the lower, and then you can go pour it, giving the patient a little break. Then you can come back and take the upper impression. So here we have an example on the lower left of what your towel should look like. So it shouldn't be dripping. Just go ahead and put it under the water, and then you might want to squeeze it, then you can wrap your impression. So on the upper left here, we have our plaster stone that you will be mixing in the bowl. So the bowl here is on the right. So then we do have our vibrator, which is used to decrease air bubbles and produce a denser model. The image on the lower left shows the machine, which is full of plaster stone. Try to keep your mess at a minimal. You might want to put a paper towel over it, like the one on the lower right. It is also good for an easy cleanup.
Is the vibrator always provided?
That right there, and then, you see that? In the back, on the back.
If your office doesn't have one, you want to try to mix it with the minimal bubbles.
And usually every single office has it.
Okay, so when we start to pour, we have our impression, which is on the upper left. You do not want to pour a large amount of stone on your impression. So let's look at the picture on the upper right. You want to first do a thin layer of stone in order to avoid any air bubbles or voids. This will help you achieve greater detail. There are times that if you pour it too fast, you might get a big air pocket and the part of the tooth will be missing. Okay? And also, a thing to consider, you do want to start on one end and have the material go to the other end. So let's say, you guys see the picture on the upper right, how they started on the left? So once you do that, when you press the impression on the vibrator, the material becomes so fluid and liquid that it'll just run down the impression. And you want to get it all the way to the other side. You see how on the lower left, it begins to creep to the other edge? So you want to do that first. You don't want to throw a big clump of stone on there first. So you get your detail. But you're fine.
So when we pour from one side, you can also put it on the vibrator for one side.
Yes. So you're going to put the impression on the vibrator, put some pressure, and then you're going to... And this is why I took them out. So you're going to have your impression like this. Okay, so with a spatula, you're going to hold it like this, and you're going to press it on the vibrator like this. So it'll feel like really funny, and then you'll put the material on one end, and then it'll start to creep down the tray this way, and then you're gonna go this way. So you can even let it fall out. Once you have that first layer, then you can start to add more and more materials, okay? But you do wanna get that first layer so that you avoid any voids, kind of getting all of the detail first. Because if you throw a big clump on there, you can't see it. What you will notice is that if your stone has a lot of bubbles, you'll start to see all these bubbles surface. And that's when you know you've got them. And if you do see the bubbles and they don't pop, you want to go ahead and use your spatula to kind of poke at them. Okay? So following the same steps as the previous slide, you want to have your maxillary impression, and you want it to end up this way. So the same things. You want to have your first layer, so you get all the detail, but your maxillary impression should be smooth and flat. You don't want to have it look like a mountain or a big clump. Okay? Also, you will notice that when the material or the stone does begin to harden, it does lose its gloss. You guys notice that on the upper right, it's still glossy and shiny, and then on the lower right, it's glossy and shiny. So we're almost done, guys, okay? So in some cases, you will need to create a base for your model. This is what we call the second pouring, which is the fabrication of the base. First, you need to make sure that you have a plastic square, which is where you're going to go ahead and place your impression once you pour it. This is easy to go ahead and transfer it from the lab to your room, wherever you need to move it to. Okay, so one, make sure to have your plastic. Then second, you want to mix your plaster and stone into a clump. Have you guys ever made cookies? And they come in that big tube? So you want to go ahead and have it be a doughy consistency. You don't want it to be watery because it's not going to stay up. So if you look at the picture on the lower left, you see how that little clump there looks pretty, it doesn't look too hard, but just enough. So that's what you want it to look like. It should be of a doughy consistency so it holds its shape. Be careful not to make it too runny or too hard. Once you have your clump, you want to go ahead and put your impression material facing down with the tray up. And you want to press, but not too hard because you want to have some height on your base. Let's look at some more images here. So the two images on the top is what your impression should look like on the base you created. You can remove excess material from the impression. Also, with the spatula, you can even out the stone. If you do have any voids, you can add extra material to go ahead and make it an even and smooth surface. The two bottom pictures show what your end product should look like once you remove the tray. So these are more examples of impressions with a base. The top two pictures are the maxillary and the mandibular, but they're not trimmed. The lower picture is trimmed. You guys notice the difference? And then these are more examples of impressions with a base, but these both have been trimmed and one has been mounted.
Will we get to trim them?
Yes, you will get to trim your trays. Okay? We won't mount them, but we will get to trim them. So today we went over a lot of information. Please make sure to review it and become familiar with the impression, the tray, and the technique. Okay? We will be doing it next week. So just go ahead and review so your pouring and your alternate impression making can be easier and more fun. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys are good. It's a lot of information. I knew this first class is going to be a little long. Usually our lecture is going to be a little shorter. But I wanted to really word, the first time. So the next week is going to be probably 25 minutes, the lecture, and then we're going to just do the lab. That's the longest lab. After that, it's going to be a little shorter. Okay, but I'm very proud of you. Good job. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your attention. So now, So now I want you to take 5 to 10 minute break, go outside, get some work. It's so cold here. And also, I would like you to put away your computers or everything that's on your desk because I want you to get the boxes out of your little lockers. It's on the bottom locker. You're gonna see the white box and a little bowl, like rubber bowl. So you have to get it out. Okay? So you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do that. Go to the bathroom, get some stuff. Or yes, both of the box. There is the whole box there. The spatulas and everything. Yeah. So when you open it up, when you go right here, you're gonna see this. Guys, you're gonna see this white thing covering the. Because I unlocked it last night. The curl underneath it and unlocked it. So we have to remove this white thing. I don't know how you call it. The sticky white thing. And it's right there. There's a white box and a little bowl, rubber bowl, because it doesn't fit. So you have to kind of adjust it. So I want you to get it out, okay? And we're gonna go through the boxes, okay? Yeah. So if you want to take away anything from your desk, it's gonna help you because you have to take everything out of the box. And we have 10 minutes. Let's be back at 9:35, 36. That's a long one. It's technical. And you need that too. You see, I didn't know what to go outside.
Excuse me.
I wish I could pay attention. It's so good. I'm so proud of them. It's so long, cold, cold love, and the long 2 lectures. Yeah. Like it is so good. Okay, love talks the cemetery. Okay.
I think the next one is gonna be better because they gave us a little bit to work with when we're going over it.
Yeah.
Videos.
These little lot of people all watch the videos and saves us time. Sorry. Okay, so if you guys can help, each of has this card. They get all one, okay? One per station. And we're here and here, here, here. Yes, so everywhere you see a box. Yeah. I feel like I saw Caroline, is she there?
Yeah, I saw her too. But
It'll be like nothing.
Okay.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
There's no one here, right?
Oh,
Or there is?
there is.
That's Adrian?
Oh, this is Adrian, and this is,
So one does go here.
yes.
And then one here.
You're smart to bring it look smarter.
I know, I keep it in my locker.
No, that's very good idea. It's cold. No, I wish you guys would bring more clothes next time.
It's not cold when I'm walking in or out. It's like,
It's funny you're sitting for an hour and a half.
the whole sitting like all day.
Yeah, yeah. No, but it's today. I think next week's gonna be shorter. So
Yeah.
just today I wanted to push everything just to get things going. So.
I'm excited about it.
Good. We'll have fun.
Yeah, I was watching, my husband was doing a impression yesterday, and he was like doing it all, like mixing everything. Like, okay, I'll watch you, like, whatever, you know. And I was watching, but then I didn't pay close enough attention. I'm like reading the lecture, I'm like, why didn't I actually look at it? Like, I'm kicking myself.
Now you're gonna notice stuff. Yeah.
Now I want to know. Yeah, I'm excited to.
Yeah, and I feel like this probably like the longest lecture because there's a lot of details. The other one's gonna be more straightforward, you know.
Like instructions.
Yeah, it's good. Well, like, okay, 20 seconds, rinse, 30 seconds, put it, carry it, done.
Wow.
But this one is it's a little longer, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are good.
I'm
It's
excited.
so good.
It's going to be exciting.
And you're gonna have fun.
yes, I Googled it because the article on one side is that the artist is I had to Google
So it's reverse. So we'll fix it. You fix it, right?
Yeah, it said 2 types reversible, and I was like, that's presenting, and then my husband was like, so what is it? I was like, picture, yeah.
So I'll upload that.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. You slow down. I think the first I do it, faster, but then second I slow down right away. And there was a lot of so I was thinking about the next time. So I was thinking to change those pictures with my gloves, put in these gloves.
Yeah, I couldn't find any. Or else I would have changed them. Well, now that we have more time, we can
Yeah, we have more
fix a
time to
lot.
fix it, yeah. And like, I always like to put other fun pictures, you know, but I don't have time, just a few, you know, I was just, at this point I was just
I
complaining.
think that the second PowerPoint, I fixed it up a lot better than the
Because it's
first
shorter,
one.
because it's shorter.
And the images up there.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's just, that's good, that's good. But I feel like it's always like, in my lecture, maybe to add anything, I think it was like strict. So like, Miss Anna.
You did good.
That's so good.
Oh, it's so cold
now.
in here. Thank you. I'm trying to go lighter.
Yeah, but I'm
You're gonna be blonde.
Like a tea station, tea and coffee station, right there. Yeah, just make sure. No. But just make sure. So, you know, that's just summer check-in. So
Honestly, I'm getting water because it's keeping on.
Oh, summer check-out.
that's what it is. Oh, makes sense. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, with Hillary.
So there should be back.
Do that so we can get it set up. Do it now because you can get on next in here.
Okay. I just need to find.
So that was like my
Stop it. Oh my God.
I think I have one at home.
Like with a little, it was like horseshoe.
Yeah,
Yeah, but then you have to have one that resembles the face.
yeah, that's the only one I don't have.
Okay, so if you film it, you cannot go because tutorials and houses. Here's the one, we should put black out. So it's what you do. That's the long, and then you can run it. Because I did some work. And I'm thinking, okay guys, be sure to get all the boxes. And then we'll go through them together. Yes. Oh, I have a question. I have something for you. I could not open your thing.
It's already open. Yeah, it's in there.
Oh, this is what we're gonna practice with, huh? Are we gonna practice?
Can I get one?
Oh, I forgot the signature pad again.
Oh,
But you guys, right after
Little
this,
metal cubby?
Oh, it's from there.
yeah, get it signed off. Okay. And so, we can. Which is ready for her to sign. But did we actually approve it as planned? Just that she needs to sign it. Okay. Yeah, so come get me, we'll go up and sign it. Okay. Since we're done.
Just either or.
It's 10 feet.
Okay, we're just waiting for a few more people to be back, and we're gonna start. I would prefer we do it all together, so we're like on the same page. So it's gonna be faster like that, okay? But in the meantime, you do put your name and your locker number. Not your box number that you, or like mailbox number that you have, but your locker number. That's the number you have on your station. Okay, so put your name and your station number.
Yeah.
Okay guys, take a seat and put your name and your locker number, your station number. Okay?
Oh, I see on the piece of paper.
Oh, there we go.
It's gonna be quick, so I know you guys are home. Okay, everybody, are you almost here, everyone? Okay, so I'm gonna ask if you guys can be as quiet as possible. So then, because the noise is gonna be, taking all this stuff makes it noisy. So I wanna be sure, we kind of go through it together. I think most of the people are here, right? Who's missing? One person?
Would this be my locker number?
Two people? Are they on their way? Let's see if they're. Three people? Okay, so you know what? Let's start when they come. We'll just hold it personally, okay? Because it's cold, and when I see you guys in the little scrubs, I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes me cold. Okay, so first of all, you're all gonna get the yellow paper. You know, you have to be sure you put your name and your station number of this lab, because I need to know which box came from where. And again, if you notice there is missing, or it's a poor condition, or it's broken, please write it down. You know, I want to be sure I keep a record of it. In the end of the class, you know, they're going to do exactly the same. And I said before, if something is missing, no, you're not going to be charged, so don't be scared. I need to keep a record for the class that's coming up to you, okay? I spent a lot of hours going through all of those boxes, so I feel like they should have everything that needs to be there. However, sometimes when we store them and the instruments fall on the way, it can break the tip. So I need to know if something, you know, is broken or missing. Okay, I think now you have everybody's back, right? Okay, so first of all, you all put your name and your box number, like the station number, right? So we have that. So the first thing on the list, you're gonna have to type it on. So mark, like a check mark on it, type it on, and put it on the side. That's the easiest one. Second one is going to be spoon excavator. If you have a hard time finding it, you can wait until the end when we go through all of it, so it's going to be easier to find that instrument. Also, you can ask the instructors around to help you. Got it? Yes, if you feel it's a little confusing, we can come back to it, you know? We can come back to it as well. Yeah, and wherever you check it off, put it on the side. So glass slab, that should be easy. That's the biggest glass block that you have. Rubber mixing bowl, very easy. Mark it off. Water measure. Some of you guys are gonna have 2 of them, some of them 1. As long as it's 1, we are okay. But a lot of you are gonna have 2 of them, like the taller one and the shorter one. You guys got it? That's so good. Okay, diaper dishes. You're gonna have 2 or 1. Some of you are gonna have glass one, some of you are gonna have plastic one. So as long as you have 1, it's totally fine. You guys got it? Good, excellent. Mouse mirror, front face. So that should be easy, right? So mark, sure it's nice, it's not scratched. Explore. It's more like cow horn, because it looks like cow horns on the side. So it's not the one that we use, it's more the dental explorer. So when you do your composites and amalgams, you're gonna use that. You guys are good? Probe. I'm pretty sure you know how the probe looks like. I hope you do by now. Okay, paste applicator. It looks like it has a little drop on the end. So when you look through your instruments, it has like a little tiny round thing in the end. That's paste applicator. And again, if it's confusing, just skip it and we'll come back and help the person. Condenser. That's the instrument you're going to be using to use for amalgam. You should have 2 of them. Usually they're different sizes. Sometimes they can be the same size or very close. So as long as you have 2 of them, that's good. If it's broken or missing, let me know, but you should have 2 condensers. Are you guys good?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now we're gonna have 2 carvers. So the tanner and the clear wood and this wood. So I put the picture because to be honest, I still don't know which one is which. I don't use it as much, but we are going to be using for composite and amalgams. So as long as we have 2, some of them are going to have a little different shape, but it has to be close enough for the picture you see on the screen. Again, and if you have hard time, you can skip it. Those are a little confusing instruments, and then we can come back and help you. Okay, interproximal carvers. So those actually look like little knives, and they use between the teeth. So just think, if you use with an amalgam composite, you have to be sure you smoothen the sides. So find the instruments that look, they should have kind of like knife shape a little bit. And you should have 2 of them as well.
Two of the instrument or?
2 of the instruments.
Oh.
Yeah, 2 of the instruments. If you have only one, just put one is missing, and I will check and see if you have it in place, or just keep it, record it. Again, if it's confusing, we can come and help you afterwards. Okay, this one should be easy. Cotton pliers. That should be easy. Okay. Crown scissors. We're going to use them to cut the temporary crowns. That should be easy to see. You guys doing okay? Screwdriver. Some of you guys are going to have 2 of them, some of them 1. So as long as you have 1, you're going to use them. We're going to use them to unscrew the teeth out of the tie bucket to put the teeth that you're going to work on. Okay? Amalgam carrier. That's for the amalgam. Okay? You guys are good? Everybody got the amalgam carrier, at least 1. Then it's going to be 3 different spatulas. One is for the cement, the skinny one, and then you're gonna have a plaster, and then just spatula 17. So it's like the bigger, the smaller, and the tiny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the. So you have this one and then this one. Okay. So some of you might miss one of the oh yeah, you got it. Well, you should have 3 of them. If not, make a note. It seems like some people are confusing with the knife. So that's the lock knife, that's going to be next. Spatulas look like, I don't know how to, skinny and long, has a wooden handle. Okay, everyone got spatulas. You find them, right? Okay, and be sure to mark 3 of them. Excellent. Lock knife, you should have that. And then metal Doppelmayr. That is going to be used for amalgam as well. You should have 1 metal. Some of you might have a plastic one, but you should have, all of you should have metal. Yes? No, no problem.
I have this one
So just use
and
this.
this one.
Okay. Now,
You have 2 as well.
if you're all done, that's great. You can sign your name and the teacher can sign next to it. If you couldn't find something, let us just walk around and help you with that, okay? Okay. Yes, I'll just go one by one, yes.
Are you just signing it or printing your name?
Sure, so this is the exact here. Okay, this Excellent. Anybody else? Yes.
What's the date today?
It's based on the paper. Okay. It seems like a lot of people would use this paste applicator. It has a little drop in the end, if you can think of. And also the carver.
This inside?
Okay. Let's come here. What do you need?
Okay. Did you get
Carvers.
everything?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I think that's just the plastic. It's the last one. Metal with plastic. She said it can be metal or plastic.
So this
But after.
I think this Yes. Okay. Yeah, just have extra ones. Also, guys, I noticed some of the boxes have the stuff from the last year. I'm sorry. Like if it's extra tea or stuff is, composite in the molders, please throw it away. If you have anything extra, just give it to me.
The springs for the tire button. You can feel the
Can you? Yeah.
Excellent. Any more questions? Okay.
Put it facing
I
down.
know.
Facing down. Well, just let them know. I think you should be fine, but you're missing the things too. Nice. I don't have it.
Yes.
I think it just goes like that.
What's today's date?
11. Yeah, right? Yeah.
Okay, so another announcement. When you're done, be sure the instructor signs it, and you're gonna keep your boxes in your lockers. And for the lab, you're gonna bring for like next week, a bowl and spatulas. But after that, I want you to bring every session, you bring your box.
Down there, right?
You take it with you and put it in your locker.
She just did the thing. Okay, walking launch and market.
You don't put your yellow papers right here in the front.
Did you have everything? Yeah.
No, I don't have anything there.
I was like, maybe I should bring a baby. Yeah, everything's in there. Okay.
So I'm just going to move this confusing, but that's going to be for checking in.
It's done, but it's... Oh. Well, this lemon already signed. No problem.
If you're done with your box, you can leave quietly. Okay? So you can put the yellow papers right here, and quietly you can leave. If you're missing something or you're not sure, let us talk to you.
Class, I have an announcement. The first week of August, that Friday, the first week of August, we are invited to go to Miss Kate's house for pizza night outside. So you guys can make it together. It's awesome. It's the first Friday in August.
But I think some people are signing it.
So we'll get more details, but just so you guys can put on your calendar. Okay. Thank you.
Do you feel good?
Yeah, we want to wheel.
What'd you do?